We've all been there, right? You feel that familiar, sinking disappointment. You set this massive goal, you get yourself totally hyped up, and then, well, a few weeks later, you're right back where you started. It's incredibly painful, but I've got some really good news for you. Today's explainer, it's not about grinding out more willpower. We aren't going to sit here and tell you to force yourself to be disciplined. Instead, we're talking about a complete identity-level operating system upgrade. And the best part, you can initiate the whole thing in just one single day. So, 85%. Think about that for a second. Studies actually show that between 80 and 90%, a staggering 85% on average, of people completely fail their New Year's resolutions or their major life goals. Why is that? It's because they attempt to change their lives in the exact wrong way. They're essentially trying to build this towering, beautiful new life on the rotting foundation of their old self. To fix that, here's our roadmap for this explainer. We'll start with the illusion of resolutions, move into the anatomy of your identity, redefine high intelligence, walk through an actionable one-day reset, and finally, look at how to literally gamify your entire life. Okay, let's dive right into part 1, the illusion of resolutions. The absolute core thesis you need to understand today is this: you aren't where you want to be simply because you aren't the person who would be there. You see, there are two types of change. Most people obsess over second-order change, which is forcing surface-level actions through sheer discipline. That's your exhausting grind mindset. First-order change, however, is changing who you fundamentally are, so your behavior naturally follows. Think about a highly successful CEO or a pro bodybuilder. From the outside, it looks like they're just constantly grinding. But the truth? They literally can't imagine living any other way. A bodybuilder would actually have to use discipline to force themselves to eat junk food. Their identity perfectly matches their behavior. The psychologist Alfred Adler hit the nail on the head when he said, "Trust only movement. Life happens at the level of events, not of words." We have to look at your actual movement, because all human behavior is goal-oriented, even if you don't realize it in the moment. If you're procrastinating on a big project, your brain isn't lacking discipline. It's actively succeeding at the unconscious goal of keeping you safe from the judgment of failure. To really change, you've got to realize what unconscious goals are running the show right now. Which brings us nicely to section 2, anatomy of your identity. If we peel back the layers of the human psyche, it's fascinating. We can see exactly how we're programmed from the ground up. First, you adopt a goal, like survival when you're a baby. Then you start perceiving reality entirely through the lens of that goal. You act, you get feedback, and eventually that behavior just becomes automated. It forms your identity. You start saying, "I'm the type of person who does X." And finally, you will aggressively defend that identity just to maintain psychological consistency. So to achieve true change, you must consciously intervene and break this cycle right before you start defending an outdated version of yourself. And, our minds actually evolve through predictable stages. As kids, we're in the conformist stage. We just adopt our parents' or society's goals to survive. But as we grow, hopefully we become self-aware. We start noticing this weird mismatch between what we feel on the inside and what everyone else is doing on the outside. Eventually, the goal is to become an individualist, realizing your principles were just shaped by your context. Sadly, though, a lot of people just get stuck conforming to their childhood programming and never become truly independent thinkers. Now, let's jump into section 3, redefining high intelligence. We really need to shift away from this outdated idea of academic smarts and instead focus on real-world mechanics. I absolutely love this quote from Naval. He says, "The only real test of intelligence is if you get what you want out of life." It's brilliant. Success ultimately requires 3 ingredients: agency, opportunity, and a very specific outcome-driven definition of intelligence. Because honestly, if you have agency and opportunity but low intelligence in this sense, you're never going to fully reap the rewards. So what actually is this kind of intelligence? It ties heavily into a concept called cybernetics. It comes from the Greek word kybernetikos, and it literally means good at steering. It defines an intelligent system that course corrects toward a goal based on continuous feedback. True intelligence isn't about knowing every single step upfront. No way. It's simply acting, sensing the feedback, and steering, just like a ship navigating the vast ocean and adjusting to the wind. This completely flips how we view setbacks, doesn't it? Low intelligence is hitting a roadblock, making up an excuse, and just quitting. High intelligence is iterating, persisting, and deeply understanding that literally any problem can be solved over a long enough timescale. Think about it.
Excuses are actually just a sign of low intelligence. A highly intelligent person recognizes that every single obstacle is merely an invitation to run a brand new experiment.
All right, let's move to section 4 and see how this all builds into the one-day reset. This is where we get incredibly actionable. We're going to do a one-day, highly uncomfortable protocol that starts first thing in the morning with a journaling session. I want you to ask yourself a tough question. What truth about your current life would be unbearable to admit to someone you deeply respect? It's heavy, I know, but the goal here isn't to shame you. It's to build productive disgust with your status quo. You need to become completely fed up with your lack of progress to trigger a real, lasting identity shift. Out of that discomfort, you're going to map out 2 crucial things. First, your anti-vision, the brutal, honest trajectory of your next 5 years if absolutely nothing changes. You need this dark picture to frantically run away from. Second, you map out your vision, your ideal, unforced Tuesday in 3 years. Not some practical Tuesday, but what you actually genuinely want. This becomes the positive gravitational force that naturally pulls you forward. Next, we move to the daytime portion of the protocol. Your morning journaling is great, but let's be real. Autopilot is going to try to take over. So you're going to set specific phone alarms to aggressively interrupt your unconscious living. At 11 a.m., the alarm asks, "What am I avoiding right now?" At 1:30 p.m., "What do my recent actions say I actually want?" And at 7:30 p.m., "What did I do today out of identity protection rather than genuine desire?" This forces a level of raw self-awareness that literally breaks the trance of your old identity. Then, in the evening, you synthesize everything you've learned. You sit down and you answer this. What is the actual enemy? Name it clearly. And let me remind you right now, the real enemy is not your external circumstances. It's not the economy, and it's certainly not other people. It's your own internal, deeply conditioned pattern that's been quietly running the show this whole time. Finally, section 5, gamify your entire life. We're going to take all these profound new insights and organize them into a structure that is highly addictive. The crucial point here is summed up perfectly by the psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. He notes, the pursuit of a goal brings order and awareness because a person must concentrate attention on the task at hand. When you lock your life into a structured game, it literally brings order to your consciousness. It strips away the chaos and naturally induces a state of peak focus and flow. You are quite literally going to turn your life into a video game using these 6 components. Your vision, that's winning. It's the ideal life you're aiming for. Your anti-vision provides the stakes. What happens if you lose or just give up? Your 1-year goal becomes your main mission. Your 1-month project is the boss fight, where you acquire new skills and gather XP. Your daily levers are your quests, the daily process unlocking those opportunities. And your constraints are the rules of the game. Together, these mechanics build an impenetrable psychological force field against distractions and shiny objects. As you embark on this, I want to give you a heads up about the phases you're going to go through. First is dissonance, feeling totally fed up with your current life. Next comes uncertainty, experimenting in the uncomfortable unknown, probably feeling a bit lost. But if you stick with the game, you reach discovery, where you suddenly make 6 years of progress in just 6 months. So that initial pain and dissonance you might be feeling right now, remember, that is the exact necessary feedback required to flip your identity. I want to leave you with this provocative final thought, a sort of psychological echo to carry with you. If your current behavior is merely a form of self-protection, what exactly are you protecting, and what is it costing you today? It's time to stop defending an identity that just isn't serving you anymore. I dare you to start your one-day reset immediately. Break the pattern, write out your vision, and start playing a game that is actually worth winning. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.